It is religion that stops the poor in Nigeria from murdering the rich. Kukah speaks. Matthew Hassan Kukah, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, was a guest speaker at the Platform Special Edition held on June 12 and organized by Koju Oyemade under the auspices of a Covenant Nation in Lagos. Held under the theme Democracy and the Free Market Economy, Kukah spoke on Nigeria's 25 years of unbroken democracy and the way forward for the country. However, he said democracy is in recession. Excerpts from the interview. They asked on using technology to fish out those stealing Nigeria's back money and stashing it in banks. He replied, I'm in full support if such technology exists. If there are drones that can go around and find out who have what, there must be a way of resolving this problem. They asked on the sorry state of Southern Kaduna. He replied, talking about the demand side of economics, I come from the southern part of Kaduna State, and we have been demanding for Southern Kaduna State since Kaduna State was created, because across the whole of Southern Kaduna there is no single sign of federal presence. They asked on labor and FG and minimum wage. He replied, the Catholic Bishop of Nsukka Diocese, Reverend Godfrey Honor, told me a story. It is a common story that animals gathered. I don't know whether it was an elephant that died and they gathered to share the elephant. And the tortoise came from somewhere and said, I must get the thigh of this elephant. Another animal looked at him and lion said, who made that demand? Other animals said it was the tortoise, and lion replied, you're asking for the thigh. If you get the intestine, that is what we are going. If you get the intestine, that is what we are going to give you. The tortoise said, actually, that is what I wanted, but if I didn't ask for the thigh, I wouldn't even get the intestine. My friends in labor are asking for the thigh by asking for 1 million naira minimum wage, and the president has already committed himself to solving the problem, as he said in a speech on Democracy Day. And coming from the background of labor, I think with himself, president, and people like Senator Adams Oshiomhole, former NLC president and ex-prime governor of Edo State, and a few labor activists, our problem should be on the way to being solved. But let me read out a quotation which will surprise you. There is indeed worldwide economic recession. However, in the case of Nigeria, the impact was aggravated by mismanagement. The situation could have been avoided if our legislators were alive to their constitutional responsibilities. The legislators were preoccupied with determining their salary scales, fringe benefits, and unnecessary foreign travels. As a result of our inability to cultivate financial discipline and prudent management of our economy, we have come to depend largely on internal and external borrowings to execute government projects. The corrupt, inept, and insensitive leadership in the last years have been a source of immorality and impropriety in our society. But we should do our best to settle genuine payments of salaries to which government is committed, including the backlog of workers' salaries. I will give $1 million, which I do not have, but I will give anybody who can tell me who said this. This is taken from a speech delivered by General Buhari on the 31st of December 1983, when he seized power from civilian President Shagari 41 years ago. I am not disappointed that you don't remember, because Nigerians don't remember anything, and that is why we are here today. We do not remember anything. They asked on 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. He replied, we are celebrating the fact that we have had 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. And we are anxious about the things we have not done, and we are also anxious about why we have not succeeded. American elections are coming up in November, and there is a lot of anxiety, perhaps even more than there is in Nigeria, and yet it is exactly 245 years since America elected their first president in 1789. It is to make the point that democracy is not an event. Democracy, the way we understand it, there is a lot of anxiety across the board. I prefer to take a fairly historical view, because too many of us are too careless about expectation, and it is legitimate to have expectation, but those expectations must be founded on reality. Professor Huntington, the famous American professor who was actually my teacher, he did say something that there were three waves of democracy. There's the democracy of the 19th century, which is the wave that took America and other countries to where they are, and then the post-World War II wave that took most of the countries in Europe to where they are today. And then, of course, the third wave happened in 1970 that saw Africa, Asia, and Latin America become democracy, or at least embracing the principles of democracy. But as you can see, across Africa, democracy has manifested in different shapes and in different forms. Nigeria's democracy pays little attention to intellectual conversation. I think what is missing in our conversation is that, unlike Europe, where the principles of democracy were founded on the thinking of several philosophers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and John Locke, etc., the whole lot of our democracy has paid very little attention. It has not been the subject of a very serious intellectual conversation. We have been involved in intellectual conversation about democracy, but modern Western liberal democracy, but as we understand it today, benefited extensively from the work of people like St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. It is also quite significant that the US President, Joe Biden, even in his presidential address, had to quote St. Augustine, and it means, therefore, that it is the teachings, the philosophies, and the theology of some of these scholars that laid the foundation for what we call democracy today. They asked on why Nigeria's democracy is in recession. He replied, unfortunately, our democracy is in recession, is in decline precisely because it is evident to us what we are working with is not something that has come from our own historical, cultural, or even anthropological experiences. But having said that, even after embracing democracy, it must be clear to us that there are different ways of talking about democracy. There are different models of democracy. The British left us with Westminster parliamentary system. We quarreled with it, and then we decided we wanted the American presidential system. Of course, I was secretary of the Political Reform Conference in 2005 when the discussion went on about term limit. There was so much anxiety, almost like there are all kinds of anxiety that Nigerians have. Nigerians cannot think beyond a particular period. Right now, obsession with politics is 2027. If you tell Nigerians about what might happen in 2040 or 2050, Nigerians do not want to hear that. So all our plotting, all our scheming is what is going to happen in 2027. They asked on China's 100 years plan to rule the world. He replied, I read a book earlier in the year which I think if you can find it, please read it. The title is 100 Year Marathon with the subtitle China's Secret Plan to Rule the World. It is a fascinating book because it talks about the fact that after the Communist Party won election in 1949, the Chinese now decided to put a plan in motion in which the plan is 100 years old from 1949 to 2049. And China, within that period, is to be the greatest nation in the world. I don't have to tell you where China is now. Nigeria democracy needs clarity, long-term plan. Nigeria democracy needs clarity, long-term. Okay, they said Nigeria democracy needs clarity, long-term plan. It was interesting. I flew Air Peace Airline yesterday. It was very nice to see Chinese air hostess speaking very good Nigerian English. That tells you that if you're going to go on the path of democracy, there needs to be some kind of clarity about what we are looking at now, where we're debating term limits. For example, I remember that Tony Blair was British Prime Minister for 10 years. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister for 11 years. Lee Kuan Yew, people would speak eloquently about Singapore, but Lee Kuan Yew became Prime Minister, I think 1958 or 59 or thereabout, and he remained so consistently. He conducted elections and won elections. The party he founded, People Action Party, is still the party in power today. And I can go on and on. But one thing to take home here is Bishop Kukah say we dey forget things too much. And now waiting keep us for where we dey. And now that one be the cocoa. Now be the truth. Now that one now hits the nail of the head. Bam! He hits her, he enter, oh wole gan. Nigeria, a word is enough. Alright, on this note, we've come to the end of the news. We say thank you for tuning in to listen. And